welcome.
Good morning. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. Wow, finally we speak. So, so you're in a cafe now. Let's just set the scene because everyone's going to hear a little bit of background noise there. So tell us where you are.
Yeah. So I'm in a cafe at the moment. So I've been, I'm in essentially where I've been climbing the mountain. It's a very, very remote location. Now it is a holiday destination, but it's very much set in what we call the west side of the lakes of the UK, and it's absolutely stunning. But there's nothing here in terms of amenities. So there's one pub and there's one cafe, maybe 20 miles away from the mountain. So I've had to come to that one, and now I have finished climbing now, but it's a case of that I was staying to sort out a few things, and so that's why I'm here.
So you're still in the mountains?
Yeah, well, I've come.
Listen to me. Your sound is really you very far away. Your sound. Just maybe tilt your microphone towards you a tiny bit, but it's hard to hear.
Is that better?
You shouldn't talk over it. Just talk a bit back. But and can you bring the table closer to you, so you're comfortable?
Yeah. How's that?
Yeah, maybe that's a bit better. And turn the volume up more.
Better?
Keep talking.
Any good? So I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still here. Can you still hear me? Good to
okay.
Go?
I can hear you. The volume's not... Yeah. It's not super loud. Have you turned it up on the green button, to twist it?
Yeah, I've got it. It's keeping going. I think it's quite well. I can hear you really, really well. You can't hear me so well, huh?
Yeah.
How's that volume-wise? Better or not?
Yeah, it's better. It's better. It's not loud, but it's better. Anyway, let's try. Carry on.
Okay.
Okay,
we'll try.
cool.
I'll raise my voice then. I'll just.
So tell me, okay, cool. So okay. So guys, everyone listening right now. So, because we tried to do this interview last week, but Sarah was in the mountains still. She's still in the mountains. I thought she would have been out of the mountains.
Yeah.
But, she's still in the mountains. And what brought us together quickly is Sarah started following me, on the show, on Instagram, and also on the show. And I'll ask you again how you came to just connect with it. And then through that, I just really wanted to connect with some of my followers and listeners. And that's why I then connected with Sarah. And then she was also doing amazing things. So I really wanted to actually share her story, which, as you guys all know, it's raw, not research. So I don't do any research and I don't know anything about her story yet, other than the basics of her climbing loads of mountains for mental health, suicide prevention for men especially. Although, I mean, these kinds of things filter into male and female anyway, right? By default. So let's start with saying, how did you find us? How did you connect with the show? And let's go from there.
Yeah. Well, so last year, obviously, we had a very long lockdown, and I spent a lot of time, just me and my bike, Jen. We were having a great, me and my bike had a great summer. and as a result of that, I spent a lot of time, we had a great time. And as a result of that, I spent a lot of time listening to interviews, and yours was something I came across a couple of the episodes that really rung true. And I'll be totally honest, the introduction of how you introduce the podcast with the background music and how you talk about the premise of it's raw, not researched, absolutely fascinated me, because I thought there's so many interviews out there that are very mechanical, if that's the right word. They're still great, still great interviews, but to have somebody who was willing to bring people onto the show where you know nothing about their backgrounds, and explore people's lives I think is fascinating. Actually, it really intrigues me, and listening to people who are not necessarily somebody you would have known prior to listening to the interview, and listening to their life story and their amazing insights and interests and the accolades that they that they're worthy of, is actually fascinating. And your interview technique, I think, really lends itself to that, because it is it's almost a conversation / interview that draws out lots of truths, and it really fascinates me.
Cool. Yeah, nice to hear, and actually really cool to hear, because yesterday we were just discussing, how to do the new intro for the new season. And you're just sort of reiterating that it was the fact that I spoke about the fact that it was raw, not researched, right? It's when I do those intros and I say, guys, listen, there's no research here. So that actually is what drew you in. That's fascinating to me. I'm quite, I feel quite lucky to hear that now at the beginning of the new season, because we were considering taking out the part where I talk in the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I mean, it was for me, when you talk about raw, not researched, I think, this could go one of two ways. So this is going to be a good one.
Yeah.
So it's intriguing.
No, so, I mean, and thanks. Cool. Thanks. Yeah. Nice to hear that. Just, for my own, feedback there. It's actually, you do your show, and then, to hear your feedback, it's actually really cool to hear that from you, who you were riding your bicycle through, were you the mountains or somewhere, and hearing these raw, not researched. Yeah, it's nice. Thanks. I'll take that as feedback. But okay, so tell us who you are, and what you're doing at the moment, so we can set the scenes for everyone.
Okay. So essentially my background is, I have a normal job, but my background is I do a lot of, I work with a lot of sports teams, and so as a physiotherapist, and do some sports psychology with mostly male dominated sports teams, and some individual sports people. The full-time job is I'm a teacher, but that's what I love to do, is work with the sports teams as and when I do. And so in reality, over the past 4 or 5 years, the reason I've I've a background of working abroad and growing up abroad, and being involved with lots of different people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures. And along the way, what I've really come to realise is that there's lots and lots of various different people and different types of people that we meet, and they create a network around you that all of a sudden you start to get to know different people on different levels. And as you're doing that, you start to realise that everyone is just a human. And a couple of years ago, very, very close to my heart, lost somebody to suicide. And it was just a real eye-opener for me. And what I then started to look around and realise, I really like to kind of be involved in looking at humans and their behaviour. And what I started to realise, that I had a huge amount of men in my life that really were quite subdued, that were struggling with their mental health. And the more and more I got to know them, and in my capacity and in my role, started to realise that there's something we need to maybe talk about this a bit more. And as the world starts to talk more and more about mental health, and that there's less stigma attached to it, actually being somebody that's involved on a ground level, what I realised is that, yes, very much the stigma attached to it is reducing, and there's less stigma than there's ever been. But while there's less stigma than there's ever been, the numbers are higher than they've ever been. So something's not correlating. And for me, it's a case of on the ground level, in the background, actually living it, being a part of these people's lives. The stigma is less, but the feeling of shame internally is still very prevalent. And I can, an example would be that I spend a lot of time in a football changing room, and I can be having a conversation. We call it, I like to call it the behind the physio door, because, they can come in and they'll have a long chat about life and about how things are going. And it's almost that, it's a safe space, if you like. Come in, and Jen, believe me, I know far too much about male changing rooms. I'm scarred for life on many levels. but when
I'm going to ask you some of those just now.
As long as I don't mention any names, I'm quite happy to.
Okay, cool.
But they will come in. They'll come into the physio room, and a chocolate bar and a cup of tea, and all of a sudden, all of these 2 hours later, you're still talking about things that are going on in their lives, and they're really, really quite unhappy. Some of them to the point where it's really quite an issue, and it starts to, I keep a diary, not so much as a written diary, but I have records for all of the people that I work with. And you start to look back and you think, wow, there's a huge pattern here. And one of the most common things that I hear is that, oh, well, I can't, if we were to talk sportsman's language, I can't go home and tell the missus because there's so much pressure on her at home. We don't necessarily talk about these things. I don't really have any other outlets. And we have these long, deep, I call them DMC. We have a long, deep and meaningful conversation. And then literally, they close the door on their way out, and they'll go back into the changing room, and they are, 10 pints in, life and soul of the party, and nobody knows that what's going on and what's gone on behind that door. So, it was something for me that I think what I wanted to try and do as a female in some ways is kind of show that suicide is huge amongst females and males. 75% of suicides are men now, is one of the basic statistics, and statistics can be lost. Statistics don't really mean anything. 75% of suicides are men. That doesn't account for individual people. That's just a number, really. But what I felt was, as a woman, standing up and going, do you know what, gents, it's all right. Like, as a woman, we're okay with it. We actually don't mind. And I'm sure that, whoever you've got in the background
in terms of what
really
what don't women mind?
So when they come into when the people that I've come across, and there are lots of them, and they tend to be quite alpha males, and they'll say, I can't go home and tell the missus, or I can't tell my mum, because actually I can't tell them that I'm struggling because they'll look at me differently. And it's a genuine conversation that I have quite a lot. And I just felt it was something I could stand up and go, actually, do you know what? We'd much rather you talk to us about it. We really are fine with it. And if you think that we don't know, when we see you on a dance floor and the next day you're miserable, we do know. And we're quite happy to have that open discussion. So it was something that I felt I could maybe just, do my little bit with and represent.
So forgive me if I'm looking like I'm listening, but your internet keeps breaking. So you're talking, and then it stops, and then it catches up quickly, and then I hear you talk quickly. No, it's fine. But so because I'm really like I'm looking at you and then I'm listening, but it does keep breaking up. So just so you know where I'm coming from while I'm in this interview. And
that's okay.
I know you can't do anything about it because you're in that cafe there. But I just wanted to set the scene for you, my side, because I'm really like listening to you, and then it stops, and then the internet goes and then carries on with your story. Okay, so
catches up.
So when you see my serious expression, then you just know where I'm coming from. But that's fine. I can coordinate it in my head. So firstly, what I want to do is just go back because of this sound. So are you a teacher and a physio?
Yes. So by trade, when I first left university, I worked for a big corporate company and decided that after a couple of years of a lot of traveling, a lot of meeting some wonderful people, but never really having a day to myself, I decided I would go into teaching. So I went into teaching, and that took me to work in lots of different countries. But when I'd been doing my degree, I did a business and economics degree. And when I was doing it, one of my very best friends was doing a physiotherapy degree. And Jen, I've never been more jealous in my life. I looked at her, and she was having all this experience with all these people. And she was writing about lots of sporting backgrounds, and she was researching different sporting fuels and the way that sportsmen acted, and I was so jealous. So before I went into teaching, I did a part-time degree whilst I was still working in industry, and so did my physio qualification. And then went out and did quite a lot of unpaid experienced work at some grassroots level football and some semi-professional rugby. And then that took me into a whole different world, really, where I was teaching, but also physioing and doing some of the sports psychology stuff as well. So almost at one point had two very full-time, full-on jobs. Then when I went to work abroad as a teacher, yeah, and it was, but don't get me wrong, it sounds very full on, but it was what I loved.
Yeah.
And it was something that I really, really enjoyed. And being a part of a background where it was such an interesting, every single time I stepped into a changing room or onto a pitch, it took me to different avenues to meet different people, to be a part of various different sporting events, being a part of a team that went to Wembley, it really opened a huge amount of doors for me that I would never have been a part of before. And met people that had similar mindsets in terms of really, really driving and pushing their goals and pushing their dreams and getting up every day, and that training kind of mindset, and really, really enjoyed it. And then when I went to work abroad, it really worked in my favour, because I could go and work in lots of different sporting environments abroad, and go to work at, for example, at the Dubai Sevens. So it gave me it's given me lots of avenues. So I'm glad that for those several years that I was working two jobs and it was tiring, that I did follow it through. I'm glad about that.
So what were you teaching?
So I teach business and economics.
Okay. In university level then?
I do. So I do the secondary school. So GCSE or IGCSE, baccalaureate and A level is what I teach.
Oh, okay.
So just pre-university. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where are you at now? What is your profession now? What are you full-time? And we're going to get now to what you've also been doing, with this cause and bringing awareness to exactly what you're saying, mental health for men. But so where are you at right now with your career?
So I currently teach. I work in the Middle East. So I work over in the Middle East and teach. So I go over. So for the last couple of years with COVID, I've done a lot of online teaching from the UK. But I'm contracted in the Middle East, and so where I've been there. This is my 5th year, going into my 5th year over there now. And prior to that, I was in Brunei in Asia. So it's been going into my 5th year. So I'll fly back over at the end of August, go back into the classroom, and lead from there, and then still do, whilst I'm over there, I have a physio studio that I've set up over there. So still doing both while I'm there.
Wow. So where in the Middle East?
In Dubai. Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So you're living in the Middle East, you're living in Dubai, and you're teaching, and you also have your physio practice, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, why are you back in England at the moment?
So last year, so last February, this is the thing at school, Jen. So I am very much whilst I love to be, I think when I got on the plane to go and work abroad, I really thought I was a little Miss Independent. I'd not long had a breakup and really thought, this is it for me. I've done a lot of traveling, but I'm just going to go and I'm going to be like a solo female. I'm really going to do it. And went over to live in Asia and had a wonderful time because I grew up in Asia, had an amazing time over there, but came back after that first year of being abroad and thought I really, really, really actually quite like home. I quite like England. And then my grandma wasn't very well, and family dynamics meant that I could, if I took another job abroad, I would get 10 weeks off every summer and I could look after her during those 10 weeks. So last February I came home. So I come home most holidays, and I'd come home last February, and of course then the pandemic hit, so I couldn't get back. So taught from here for the whole of that year. Went back in October this year when I could get back over, and came home for the Christmas holiday. When I got home for the Christmas holiday, I felt really lucky to be able to do that. And then after the Christmas holiday, we were told professional visas, we had to do 2 weeks transition in a GCC country before we were allowed to go back in. So
what does that mean? What do you mean by that?
So that because of COVID, before we were going to, because of COVID, before we were going to be allowed to go back in, we had to go into another GCC country. So myself and two colleagues had gone over to Bahrain. And I was staying in almost like an Airbnb type apartment in Bahrain. When I was in Bahrain, we were doing our 2 weeks, and I think it was around about 10th or 11th day that I was there, was starting to feel quite unwell, and went to see a pharmacist, was quite unwell and had to be taken into hospital in Bahrain had to have some emergency treatment. I nearly died when I was there. I had some medical concerns, gynecological issues that meant that by the time I got into the hospital, the surgeon had said, if we don't operate now, if you hadn't had you here today, you may well tomorrow not still be here. So at that point then my colleagues had gone back to work and travelled, so I was in Bahrain and had to have this treatment. So I was in hospital for a couple of days, and the surgeon had said, you can't fly for 10 days or so. Anyway, 5 days later I had an infection and they needed to operate again, so I had to go back in.
Wow.
Ironically actually 6 months ago today it was. Wow. And it was on and it was on my mum's 60th birthday, and I'd been really unwell, and when I was in, I'd always been very, very, always been very active, very fit, and I suddenly realised that actually I'm in a country, and it was the funniest thing, Jen, because I knew I was going in for the surgery, but because I knew nobody there at all, you don't know anybody, you have your survival instinct really has to kick in.
Yeah.
And so I went and did my food shopping before I went in for my surgery. Because what else do you do?
Yeah. But I mean, weren't you too sick to go food shopping? I don't understand that.
Well, yeah. So I remember walking around. I was in an expat supermarket and walking around, and Bahrain is a place where there are lots of military people. And I remember walking around a supermarket and a man looking at me, and Jen, I didn't look particularly well last week after a month up a mountain, but this was like the Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah.
So I'd gone shopping, not looking the greatest. Yeah. And I distinctly remember thinking, I've got about 5 more minutes before I could be in real bother here. I know that I'm not very well, and I'm really starting to feel quite sick. And I've always been a very healthy, athletic person, and it really there's only another time in my life where I'd had a miscarriage that I'd felt quite that poorly, and I really thought to myself, of course I can go food shopping. Like I'm Sarah, of course I can. I've never not been able to do things for myself. And I remember being in the supermarket and looking, and in Bahrain you can very much spot a military person, and I'd seen this man, and he'd looked at me, and I said to him, "Are you like, I really don't feel very well, and this is the situation." And like a godsend, he said, "That's fine. I'm in the Navy. I'm going to take you to the hospital right now." And he took me to the hospital. And then checked on me the next day to make sure, to see how I was. So, you know, I was very unwell, but in my head I was like, of course I can go food shopping. Like, I need to, because afterwards I'm going to be in trouble, otherwise I've got no food.
But so hold on a sec. So now you stopped over before, so you had to do your 2 weeks time there in Bahrain before you went to Dubai. You got sick, so you went to the hospital. They said you had an operation straight away, and then you came out, but then you got an infection. They said they need to operate again. But before you went in for the second op, you went shopping.
Yeah.
And where were you staying in the meantime? Like, were you staying in a hotel, or what? Where were you staying in between these two ops?
Yeah, so in a hotel. I was in a hotel in Bahrain. And Bahrain's a strange country, Jen, because I've travelled a lot by myself, as I said, but it's a very different dynamic in Bahrain. There's not a lot there. So, you know, all of a sudden what I realised was that in the whole world, I was very much alone. And, you know, little Miss Independent that was going to be able to, you know, that was able to do all of these sporty things. Actually, I was just completely on my own, and it was a survival instinct of, if you don't get up and get your shopping, Sarah, if you don't do this, you have nobody. So it's, you know, it was very much, that's what I had to do. And then as a result, go on.
What was I mean, can you tell me about what happened?
So essentially I had a burst cyst on my ovary, and I'd tried really hard because I knew I had to fly, I needed to get back to work, like, was the bottom line, and I tried really hard to see it through to the 14th day where I could then fly. And I knew from about maybe 10 days in that I was really starting to feel quite unwell. And then it was just, I went to see a pharmacist, and he said, "No, you're really not well. We're going to have to do something about this." And I tried to see it through to fly, but there was no way. And I'm quite glad he didn't. I'd probably have been quite unwell, but it was burst cyst. And during the first operation, the surgeon was amazing, absolutely second to none. And he said, "You know, I've tried really, really hard to save a part of your ovary. I've managed to save a part of it." So, you know, he was amazing. And then when I went back in the second time, that wasn't meant to be. And so he had to operate and take it all out. But he had tried his absolute utmost to make sure that didn't happen. And as a result, you know, it just so happened that he hadn't been able to get all of the infection, and I had to go back.
So what did he have to take all out?
All of my ovary, so my left ovary. So he tried very hard. He saved a part of it the first time, and then the second time, he said it was almost impossible, that it was, if he'd left it, I would have been really sick. So so he took it all out. Which at the time was, like I say, 6 months ago today, did lots of things. You know, I had to ring my mum on her 60th birthday and say, "Mum, you know," and I'm the eldest of 4, Jen. So I felt very much, first of all, I'm not there for my mum's 60th because I've chosen to live abroad. And then I'm now having to go, "Happy birthday, Mum, by the way." And then as a result, you sit and you do a lot of, I've always done a lot of sporting things. I've never been in a situation, Jen, where I've had to, it is literally survival instinct. Or maybe once I got stuck between the border of Brunei and Malaysia, but survival instinct had to kick in. And what it meant was that I suddenly had in this moment at 33 years old. I'm not mortal. I'm not immortal. I am very much mortal.
Invincible. Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting. And it's such a good point, because, that is, inspiring in itself for people to realize, because you make different decisions. And I know that some of us have to go through, we've got to go through it. We've got to go through that experience ourselves to realize it. But we do think that we are invincible, certainly in our, 20s and early 30s, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because you do, you in your, I remember being mid-20s, I suppose, and somebody had said to me, do you want to do a marathon in a couple of weeks? And I just went, yeah, all right, no problem, no worries. Yeah. Because at that age, you just think, I'm immortal. I can do anything, I can, anything from going out on a Saturday night and feeling immortal to getting up on a Sunday morning and going, I ran 30 miles today, and all that happens in between. Yeah. And you genuinely do think you are immortal. And I suppose I do think, though, I think it's really important that people have that in their lives up until a certain point. If I don't like to think that people have to go through something to realize that they are immortal, but life has twists and turns that do that. There will always be something in your life, whether it be you are a military soldier who has fought for his country and then a poignant moment hits, or whether you're just somebody that goes into an office every single day, and you are, you sit in your life, and what you do is incredibly important to your role and your contribution to life. Everybody will be hit somewhere along the line with something, which is not a nice thought. But what it does is, I think it makes that those first, you look back and youth is wasted on the young. Up until you're 30, I quite like the thought that people think they're invincible, actually. Yeah. Because, nobody wants to think that they're not. So go out.
And I mean, exactly. And actually that is the time where you really go out there and connect with, reflecting on that as well myself, you're like balls to the walls. I mean, you're just like, you do crazy stuff, but I mean, it is also the best time of our lives, isn't it?
And that's exactly the phrase I would love
God
to use.
for it being invincible. That's all I can say. I want to be invincible forever, but I mean, we all know that we're not, and a lot of people that follow the show know I've lost my brother. So, it's like you get shocked and shot in the heart with all these stories, right? And that's why we're meeting now, because your whole cause was climbing these mountains for people that are living lives not being invincible and actually taking their own lives. So I mean, let's just go back in there again now on the second call. So just to recap, you've been climbing these mountains. Now I want to know all the details about it, but you've been climbing these mountains, and it's all for mental health awareness and suicide prevention, specifically for men. You were talking about in the first part of our conversation, that you, being a physio, you work in a lot of change rooms and a lot of interesting stuff goes down, but you also get the down and dirty on the raw and the vulnerable. So talk to me now about what you've been doing and exactly what the climb thing is about, and how many days in a row, and like the actual structure of what you've been doing.
Yeah, well, so that very poignant moment, I suppose, when you sit and you think, I'm not invincible, actually. And there's I do quite a lot of reading, and there's a concept. I've always done quite a lot of charity, not a lot of charity work, very much a case of I like doing sporting events, may as well do it for charity. And there's a Japanese, I think it's Japanese philosophers concept. They talk about the ikigai.
Say that again. Just say that. I didn't.
Yeah, there's a philosophy called, I think it's Japanese philosophy, and Ross Edgley talks about it. It's called the ikigai, and the ikigai is made up of 4 concepts. Do you love it? Is it something that the world needs? Can you make money from it? and I can't remember the fourth element of it. But essentially, I sat back and thought, well, do you know what? I'm not invincible, clearly, but what's happened to me is a very isolated incident. I felt a little bit low for a little while. I'm gonna design something that actually, I'm not invincible, but what I am going to do is do something that's good for the people around me, that makes me, do I love it? Yeah, it's going to make me feel a little bit better about myself for a little while, and prove to myself that despite everything that's gone on this year, I can still do it. But in the same point, I need to raise awareness for a cause that is massively close to my heart and I'm surrounded by. So it kind of ticked all those boxes. So I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to climb a mountain. But there's very little point in climbing a mountain once. Well, it's not that there's very little point. It's a very, very, very high mountain. But if I'm going to do something and I'm going to want to raise a lot of awareness, I spend a lot of my time involved in the health, in talking to those people. You can't be involved if you're not present and you're not there. So the original plan was that I was going to climb England's highest mountain 50 times consecutively.
Which one?
And Scafell Pike. So it's 978 meters elevation. So what I decided was that I would do 50 in 15 days. And that was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
So I would look at it, and if we go with Movember, because Movember as a charity was not just about, it was a lot of focus on suicide prevention, but also brought in other men's health causes, testicular and prostate cancer. And so I thought, and when I talked to Movember, they were wonderful about, if you raise a certain amount of money, Sarah, we will let you be involved in the initiatives that we use that money for. And I thought, that's great. I don't necessarily have to be involved, but I know a lot of men that would love to have contributions to what that money can go towards. So fantastic. So I set this challenge. So Jen, I've gone off on day one, really thinking she's back, like she is in. Who says I'm not invincible, right? So really, honestly.
Yeah.
And as I'm walking along on my very first day, I did 4 climbs. Now it was hard, but I did it, right? So I did it. And
say that again, on your first day.
Yeah, on my first day. So I did it 4 times on my first day, because 50 in 15 days meant that I was going to have to be doing 3 or 4 every day.
Sure.
So 3 or 4 summits every day to finish it.
But you clapped it all on. You did 4 in your first day. Your ass must have been so sore.
Well, my ass, my feet, my blood sugar was just like haywire. Everything was haywire. My hair, Jen. Oh God, yeah. My hair.
Your hair. What happened to your hair?
All dignity. Because I carry a mane at the best of times. You add a lot of moisture to that. 4 times up and down. It's not a sight. It's not a sight to behold.
So tell me, did you do this alone?
Yes. So the whole premise of it was that if I was to do it alone, it would be representative of the fact. Again, just going back to the point of, as a woman, I want to stand up and go, do you know what, gents? Please talk to us. It's okay. We'd like to know. And we will have your back. But also, if I did it alone, a premise of I was never going to come out unscathed physically or mentally. And if you are going to represent a cause that I'm not a male, you can't necessarily completely relate to, you have to design it so that it gives you some insight as to what you're representing. It was, having said that, Jen, unsupported on the surface, yes. However, background wise, people that I have met, people that have been supportive, you and your never-ending level of support and messages, people that have come out of the woodwork and got in touch, people that have donated before I've even finished, on the premise they don't even know me, companies that have come in and said, because there was a saga with my shoes that we'll go into, but they've gone just off the back, kind of believe in this girl, we're going to send her a new pair of shoes because she's in need. So yes, unsupported, but background support wise could not have been, it was second to none, and it has been all the way through. So
amazing.
Yeah, and so I think as well, you know, what it stood for was that actually when you are in your hour of need, you've just got to ask for help, or you've just got to say, I'm struggling a little bit here, and somebody will always step in and say, here you are, you know, don't struggle alone.
Yeah.
I mean, at the shop at the bottom, there's a shop, it doesn't sell a huge amount, but it's I would walk in and say, one more, can you write me down, and they would say, yeah, hiya, write you down, here's a Mars bar, go. So, you know, so,
as in write you down to pay later.
Yeah, pay later. Yeah, here's another one. Here's a marker. She's on another.
Yeah. So tell me, okay, so you started on the first day. So if I looked at your pics on Instagram, you had those big not flags, but they're like flags with, you know, November. And so did you design those yourself? Is that your own thing? Like, how did you actually organize this?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be honest, Jen, it was a little bit not haphazard, but I sat back and thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to do this right. Now I need to be, there's very little point in me climbing a mountain 50 times and just telling people. I need to show people, because otherwise nobody's going to believe what I've done. So I'm going to order this flag because I can wear it and it's noticeable. And my mum said, oh goodness, you really have no pride.
What do you mean?
Well, she said, so my mum has this thing, Jen, where she'll say, you know, she quite often, well, I mean, quite a lot of the pictures, she'll say, oh, Sarah, you can tell that there was no mother and there was no mirror around to tell you what you look like that day.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, she says no mother or no mirror. And she's right, there were neither of those two things. So I bought this great big flag because I thought it's got to be noticeable, and it was good. It stimulated conversation. People asked. It got people donating. It got noticed.
But when you say people asked, so basically there you were on your first day, and you set off and you climbed the mountain 4 times. What did you say? 900 meters.
978, yes.
978 meters. Yeah. So you went up and down, up and then back down. So 9 up and down, or 9 up and then 9 back down?
So going up is 978.
Okay.
So then it's same coming down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you did that 4 times. You had your flag with you. You set off like, you know, walking the pilgrimage in Spain sort of thing on your own up the mountain. And then did you just come across people along the way and they asked you questions and you chatted, or was it quite a sort of a solo journey going up?
Yeah, so the path's relatively narrow and then it widens, but it's relatively narrow. And after I'd gone up a couple of times up and down, it's at first incredibly not daunting, but you have no idea how effective this is going to be. So this could all go one of 2 ways.
You're thinking I'm doing this for nothing. My ass is sore. My hair looks like crap. No one even knows I'm in the mountain.
Knows I'm here. No one knows I'm here. And you've got no connection. So you can't pretend. You can't ring anybody and say I'm here, because nobody knows. So you're quite literally putting yourself into a campaign, which, you know, and at first a lot of people were very much like, well, is she what's this? This could go one of 2 ways. People could go put her in the loony asylum, like put her in the bin.
Yeah.
This is how it could look.
Exactly.
I wouldn't blame them. So, but after a couple of times of going up and down, because it takes, you know, you can do it in 4 hours, 3.5 hours, or for some people it's an all-day event. You know, it take them 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours and so people on maybe my third go. Sorry, there's a police car in the background. Maybe my third go were saying, have you come past us? Have you? What are you doing? And as soon as you tell them, you say, so the original went on to be 100, but 50 in 15 days. And they, Jen, honestly, their faces, and you start to doubt yourself, because they'll say, what? So what? You go, well, I mean, yeah, I know. And then, so, you know, some people will say, what? Like, and then you can hear, you know, muttering in the background when they're
But
talking.
what do you mean? Explain that, because people are listening to you, and I can see your facial expression, but not everyone can see your facial expression. Yeah. So, and guys, if you want to see a facial expression, you can go onto the YouTube channel. But for those of you just on the podcasting, I'm seeing Sarah saying, what? But okay, so, and I can see what you're saying is obviously that they're completely shocked that you've done this now 15 times or whatever. But is that what they were thinking? They were thinking, are you mad, or are you stupid, or like, is that what you mean?
Yeah. So people would say exactly that. Are you crazy? Like, okay, why on earth would you be doing that? So you tell them, and they say, okay, well, could you not have just done it once and got people to sponsor you for doing it once? And you say, well, yeah, but you know, it's maybe not quite as effective. And they'll say, okay. And there are a lot of so there's a big challenge event in the UK called the National Three Peaks.
Yes, I know that. I've driven that before. I was the driver of the crazy climbers, but yeah, that's an amazing climb. You can explain it actually a little bit.
Yeah, and it's an incredible challenge, and it's an incredible feat. And people climb and drive between the UK's highest mountains. Mm-hmm. So Ben Nevis in Scotland, Scafell Pike in England, and Mount Snowdon in Wales. And they've got to do it within 24 hours. Yeah. Now, that's a massive challenge to take on. It's a huge feat to take on if you have got, because that's, you know, not only including in that climbing time, you've got driving time, and you sit in a car and you get stiff and you get cold and you're tired and hungry. So that's a massive challenge. And as I was walking up and down, coming across a lot of these challenges that are taking on the three peaks, and they say, oh, this is, you know, we're doing the three peaks, and you have a chat, of course you do. And then you say to them, oh, I'm doing this, and they'll say, well, what are you doing? And you say, well, I'm doing this 150 times. And again, the same reaction. Is there something wrong with you? Because they're in the midst of this challenge that is, you know, really, really hard. And then they then say, well, how on earth do we comprehend doing this consecutively for 15 days? Because that's essentially what you're doing. Yeah. And so, you know, you have some funny chats along the way, because, you know, that kind of reaction comes from mums, dads, kids, mountain leaders, you know, the mountain rescue team. We're all saying the same thing. So.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
That's interesting what you're saying, though, because that is what's so phenomenal about the mind, is how it literally adapts to the goal that you set it. It just programs itself, right? So they were programmed to walk that mountain once, and you were programmed to walk that mountain 50 times. So it's so your mind programs itself around the goal that you set it. And I mean, that's exactly what happens there, right?
Absolutely. And it's that case of you've got that mindset in your head, and you do it. And so in the midst of their challenge, when I'm saying, you know, doing it 50 times, their mind is thinking, I've got 6 more hours to get through. And I know that I can do 6 more hours. And then I've finished. And your mind is an incredible tool, isn't it? So your brain is, because physiologically, your body is designed. So if you were to talk about it we could talk about it in the Three Peaks or in the concept of a marathon. You hit the second mountain of the Three Peak Challenge or the 18th mile, and you hit that wall. Physiologically, your body it's low on glycogen, it's tired, it's sore, your muscles are really, really sore. Yeah. And your mind thinks, I've got to do this. But physiologically, you pull a little handbrake, your body says, hang on a minute, hang on. We've got, you know, we're struggling here. Yeah. And so your mind starts to go to all kinds of places, because your body is stopping working in that way. But then you get to the third mountain, or you get to mile 22 or 23, and you go, oh, I can do this now. So your mind reprograms itself, because it can see the finish line. And all of a sudden you have that capability of picking up and going with it again. and so you know, when the people that I encountered were always on their middle climb, because Scafell Pike, no matter which way you do the challenge, is always the middle. And so they were always of that really struggling mindset, because they were on their second mountain and they still had a way to go. So for them to then try and comprehend what I was doing, whereas I was nowhere near my mind was still had a long way to go.
Yeah.
So I was programmed into knowing that. And so for me, it was just a different mindset. And your mind is, you know, your mind will give up on you 1,000 times before your body will. And it's you've just got to take on that mental, you know, almost go back to, it's fine, I'm invincible. When you know, there's always going to be that pocket in the back of your mind that says you're not, and this really hurts. This is really hard.
Okay, so when I looked at your, you know, because I follow you on Instagram, as I've said, in one of the many now conversations we've had along trying to get this interview going, but the guys that were with you, and then the guys that were dancing with you up at the top. So guys, so if you go onto Sarah's profile, is it just Sarah Bilko? I can't remember what your profile is.
Yes, just Sarah Bilko.
Yeah, Sarah Bilko on Instagram. So if I looked at the pictures, you always had these guys at the top of the mountain with you. Certainly, maybe not all of them, but the ones I remember, and definitely the more recent ones, where you were singing, and you know, you did a YMCA, and so who were those guys, and when did they all join you along on this walk?
So as I was walking along, it's very much a case of, you know, you start to have these conversations, what you're doing, and then you think to yourself, you come along, Jen, across so many men who will tell you the same story. I've really struggled. I've got a friend that struggled, a partner that struggled, you know, and you come across these people and you think, gosh, this is really prevalent. And
so when you say struggled, sorry to interrupt, when you say struggled, you're talking about mental health.
Yes. So you open up about the conversation of the cause that you're doing it for, and what it does is lead into so many conversations, and then you start to think, well, what you want to do is me doing this up and down is great, but you want to give people a little bit of something that makes them have a good time, and that, you know, you have that conversation, but then show them actually that there's, you know, there is a little bit of life out there. And I love dancing. I just like to dance. So and you think to yourself, do you know what, if you're going to raise awareness of something, and what you want to do is show people that there is community out there, that people will, you know, there is support, and, you know, in that 5 minutes of having a better moment, you feel 5 minutes better. And then you walk away and you've had a bit of a better day, you've had a better moment, and you had a bit of a better time. So, you know, so what were we going to try and do? Well, we would try and get, you know, I didn't know these men. We'd get to the top of the mountain and we would say, right, we're going to raise a little bit of awareness for charity. Who's in for a YMCA? Now, Jenna, what I can promise you is that none of those men, right, have stood up and gone, yeah, I'll do that. No one. There's behind every man that is at that dance, there's a woman who's gone, get yourself onto that mountain and do a dance. Right?
So basically you met these guys. So you'd be doing this climb, and obviously you're quite a chatty person. So you would also open up conversation, right? Your energy would open up the conversation, you know, even if your mouth didn't, your energy would, and then maybe they would start asking you questions first. But so there you were, and then they would sort of carry on up with you, alongside you up the mountain. And then when you get to the top, you would just say to them, come guys, we're at the top now, and you've got your flag with you. So that sort of creates that repetitive stamp of what you're doing, right? Especially for the outside world seeing it, is when you're posting it on social media. But so, and then almost everyone who's then with you, they're almost being represented by you and your cause. That's what it looks like. But actually there are strangers that have come to the top, followed you to the top, and then you say, okay, cool, now that we're up here, let's now bring awareness, as you said, and then you make them do the YMCA.
Yeah, exactly that. So
and they're all men.
Well, yeah. So because it's for male suicide prevention, the whole premise is, right, come on, gents, we're all going to stand for the same cause here. And so, and you say to them, and some of them have walked up the mountain with me, but for the most part, I've gone up there and then, found people along the way, or if I've chatted to them, got to the top and said, right, come on now then. And then, it takes a couple of minutes of a woman or a couple of other men going, okay, all right, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And before you know what's happened, you're thinking, oh, health and safety, mountain rescue are going to be on me because I'm making these men dance on top of a mountain where there's not that much room. So, and you think, oh, I'm going to be in trouble. Go on.
Yeah. No, and then also in the latter pictures, there were the guys that were all in their little Speedos up there. So who were those guys?
Well, so we kind of created, after the YMCA, it became a little bit of right, well, we can do this now. And what we're going to do is we'll stick with some 80s theme tunes because that's what everyone knows. So then we got, there was a group of very young lads who did a Macarena for me. And that I needed that day. I could pretend it was all easy. I had some very dark days. And that day I really needed them. It was almost like a coming together of, right, we'll do it for you because you're doing it for us kind of thing. And so, they were quite young and they were quite up for it. So we did the Macarena. And from that, one of them has said, well, we'll do it in our pants if you like. Now, that was a Sunday and there were a lot of children there, Jen. But we'll hold on that for now. And then, I don't know whether it's my creative side, my side where I just was wanted so many people, like I say, I was doing it myself, but the more involvement of people you get, the more awareness you raise, the more maybe not happiness, but the more spirit it brings to, if on one day you put a man in a dance who's having a bad day, and he goes off and it raises his spirit, or they see it on Instagram, or they talk about it, raises his spirit. So then I thought to myself, right, well, what we're going to do. So I had a little think and thought, right, eventually, because I was coming to, so at that point then I'd extended it to 60 because, of course, eventually went to do 100 climbs. But as I was coming towards the end of the 50, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to ramp, we can keep dancing, but, that's going to get the same as she's just climbing. We're going to have to introduce something new here to try and keep the cause alive and try and, keep it entertaining, I suppose, if that's the case, because
and obviously, and also to keep raising money, more money.
Yeah, and that was the whole premise of it, was that, my original target was 50 climbs in 15 days and a £4,000 target. When we approached we were coming to the end of the 50 climbs, and I decided that we hadn't quite hit the 4,000 at that point, and I thought, well, if I do another 10, that's only going to take me 3 days. I'll that's fine. Hopefully by then we'll get to the 4,000. And at that point I was starting to think, right, well, I need to come up with some more creative ideas here to raise, a bit of awareness.
Yeah.
Then over the weekend, so I was thinking, this is where the budgie smugglers came in. So the speedos. So,
the guys in their speedos. I like what you said. Budgie smugglers.
So I was thinking, right, I'm going to have to bring in, so I'm going to have to go big. So I'm going to have to bring in some kind of, and what better way to end the 60 or the 65th than some speedos with some men dancing in speedos.
Yeah.
Good way to go. So I got in touch with the company, who were more than happy and more than willing to, they were so great and more than willing to send me 5 pairs. So they did. So I got to about the 63rd climb, and I had these, and there were some men that were putting them on for me. And I thought, great. And one of them said, oh, only 65? Like, only 65? So I said, right, okay. Anyway, got to the end of the 63rd climb because I decided I was going to go to 65 over the weekend. So I'd got to the 60th on the Friday. We'd hit 4,000 target. The speedos had arrived. I thought I'll go to 65 over the weekend, you know, might exceed the target. Worst case scenario, a bit more awareness over the weekend, you know, even if we don't get any extra donations. Get a few men in some speedos up a mountain. It's going to, you know, it's going to create tension. So got to the Saturday night, and you know, all these men had, I was really lucky on that weekend because the weather was great, and so, you know, all left, right and centre, you're saying to men, put these speedos on, and they're going, it's for charity. Oh, all right then, no problem. Right, so they put the speedos on. Anyway, got to the Saturday. Had done my 63rd climb, knowing that on the Sunday I was going to 65 and I was going to be finished. And I'd worked really, really hard on the fundraising. That was kind of like the big push, and just, you know, using the speedos to have a bit of fun with and raise some awareness. Sat down after the 63rd climb. Somebody had just handed me back the speedos, and I got a message from a friend who just said, check your emails. So I thought, so check my emails, and then I opened an email, and the only thing I could see on the page was 100. There was this long email, and jumping off the page at me was 100. And in that moment where I'd been so excited and was in my head, finishing this time tomorrow, I'm going to be in the lake having a great time. And it was somebody saying, what you've done in terms of creating awareness has been really, really funny and really good, and it's been a nice journey to watch. We're very, the person that sent me the email said, with male suicide is a huge, you know, it's a huge issue in terms of, not an issue, something that's very prevalent in my life. And he was the guy that owned his own business. He's a friend, and he says, you know, suicide prevention is huge for me. If I can try and do a little bit of drum banging in the background about the cause and raise some more awareness and some sponsorship, will you go to 100? Now, Jen, I was sat right at the bottom of the mountain. My hair was a sight to behold, I can assure you. I had these dirty speedos in my hand that a man had been wearing, right? He'd given me these speedos back. They were sweaty. I was sat at the bottom of the mountain. My feet were on fire. It was hot. We'd hit the target that I wanted. I was sat like looking like something, you know, out of the Rocky Horror Show. Yeah. And this email, and I went from being up here and high as a kite to being down here within about 3.5 seconds. And then I looked at these speedos and just thought, do you know what? Like, I've got a man's secondhand sweaty speedos in my hands, and I'm a sight. People are looking at me, and I thought, well, what else am I going to do? Of course I've got no choice. So these speedos then became a major part of, if I'm going to get through to 100, they're going to have to, you know, I'm going to just have to go with it. Yeah. And hope that I can get people into these budgie smugglers as I go along and raise a lot more awareness.
It's amazing how you did keep changing the goalpost. Do you think that that's healthy to do? Do you think it's good? Like, tell me what your experience is now of, so you set a goal, right? You achieved the goal, but then you wanted to do more and then more and then more. Explain that psychological process to me.
So I think, okay, so when I first set the 50, it felt mammoth. It really did. It felt huge. Second or third day, I did a night climb, struggled, because it was that initial stage of, actually, I've set this goal for myself, and now I'm on day 2 or 3, and I'm not actually sure it's achievable, really. And then as you go through, you realise that dark moments, brighter moments, you keep one foot in front of the other, you will eventually get there. Going to 60 was definitely a decision I made for myself, and I was quite happy with that decision, because it was it was never intrinsically, it was, can I do it? Yes, I can. I know I can. My extrinsic purpose here is that I really, really want to achieve the goal that I set out to do in terms of fundraising. I know what it can do. It's really close to my heart, and I really would like to do that. So the 60 for me, psychologically, was not really a major problem. 65, again, not too much. Sat down, if I'm totally honest, sat down to think about the 100, put me is it inspirational to sit down and people have said it's inspirational? I'm not sure that's quite. Had anybody said to me at that point, do you think you've done enough? I would have said I would like to do more, but I am pleased with what I've done so far. And so the honest truth of the matter is that when I sat down and got that email, I didn't respond. I needed to have a night where I sat beside the lake, did have a little bit of a cry because I was tired. I was really tired, and it would be wrong of me to pretend that it wasn't hurting. I had a stress fracture in my ankle at that point, and the premise of it was that to raise awareness of a mental health charity. Was it worth putting myself in a difficult mental position? Was that not a bit ironic? So I thought that through really long and hard and thought, am I now sending off the wrong message here? That actually, what I didn't want to do was, I sat by the lake for a long time and had a long think. I didn't really sleep that night because I thought the premise of what I'm trying to do here is not, it's not about me. It's not about what I can achieve. It's about raising awareness. And if you look at then changing the psychological goalposts, what am I really doing this for? And who am I doing it for? So I sat and thought about it for a long time. What I didn't want to do was make people think that what I'd done had been easy, not because I wanted to be a martyr to the cause, but because what I didn't want to do was make people, the premise of it was to make people feel good about themselves, not the opposite. And by showing that actually this looks like she's doing it easily and I could never achieve something like that, or I find it hard just doing it once, that changes the premise of what it was supposed to be. And there were I had a lot of dark moments that night. I had a lot of thoughts. And then when I got up the next day, I thought, you know what? This is not about you. Can you mentally do this? Yes, you can. Is it going to raise, how many boxes does this tick? Is it going to raise more money for the cause? Yes. Is that what the premise of this is? Yes. Are you going to have more conversations along the way that might help somebody? Hopefully, yes. Is your body going to come out on top? Probably not. But when I set the 50, it probably wasn't going to be either. Psychologically, are you going to be okay? I'm going to struggle, but it's only 35 more. And what that means is that I've broken the neck of it. So I'm actually at 65% of my goal now. So by switching my thinking on it and looking at it is, instead of I've got to do another 35, it was, well, actually, I've broken the back of it. Can I still put one foot in front of the other and raise a lot more awareness? Am I invincible? Absolutely not. I've never been injured during an event before. I've got a stress fracture. That, am I invincible? No. I know that from this whole year. Is this going to help another man, another family, brother, sister, dad? Yeah. And that's what I'd like to do. So I put my shoes back on and went again.
Yeah.
Would I say to anybody that would I have felt let down in myself if I'd not taken it on? No. Nobody would have known. I could have quite easily kept it quiet and I would have said, that's enough for me. I've done what I set out to do. I'm going to go home.
Yeah, but it's human beings are at the core, human beings are fighters. We are survivors at the core.
Yeah.
So when you're given the opportunity, already in the face of having achieved something, you already are on the on the upside of making that decision. Do you know what I mean? Because you have already just achieved. So and that's also the thing about life, right? They say that people in general who are happy and do live happy lives, it's when they are creating realistic goals for themselves that have meaning to them, and then achieving those goals. It's those things that bring also true happiness to people. And the goal, to reiterate, has to have meaning to the person. You know what I mean? Not just like, I want to make £1 million, pounds, euros, and then achieve that goal. That on an intrinsic level, that doesn't have meaning to a human being. But just tell me what, like you've mentioned it 3 times now, these dark days. Like, can you just run us through what that means to you?
Yeah. So it would be crazy of me to sit here and say that everything that was, dancing wise, it was for a cause, it was for a purpose. But I spent 33 days walking up and down a mountain 14 hours a day. 14 hours a day. Some days, Jen, I saw 10 people. Some days I saw 10 people who were with their families, with their friends, having a laugh, having a joke. And I was on my own, I saw all different weathers, which was actually really interesting, because what I found is that I prefer the cooler weather to the warmer weather. Yeah. But there were moments, there's not a lot of connection. I lost, so I thought I would make it home for him. I lost a man who I consider to be my granddad the week before I finished. Wow. And it was semi-expected. I'd made sure that I'd got enough connection every day to ring, and that was tough, because I'd rung on the night that he'd been poorly, and there'd been no answer, and because there'd been no answer, I just assumed that him and his wife were having a Saturday night of watching the telly, and they weren't. He'd passed away, and that was the Saturday before I finished, and that was tough, because that was a case of, do I now make the choice to go on, or do I go home to his wife, who I also consider to be like a grandmother to me? I've got 2 choices here. She's telling me to go on, because actually he would be proud of me to continue, but it was a shock, and so that was a really difficult moment, actually. But a funny story came of it, Jen, because so I was sat at the bottom of the mountain, and I'd just spoken and realised that we had been told what had happened, just been told the news, and I was sat at the bottom, and I was really tired. It was the end of the day, and I was having a little cry, and nothing, I had a sore ankle, it was hot, I'd just been told that news, I was having a little cry just by myself, just thought, just go and sit for 5 minutes to get it out. Anyway, I could hear 4 men, and at the bottom of the mountain there's a gate, and I was sat just on the inside of the gate, and I could hear people coming. There was a group of men, I could hear them coming, and I thought to myself, well, come on, Sarah, sort yourself out. I'm very obvious with my flag, so I don't want people to, don't want to make a fuss. Anyway, as I was sat, I could hear them, and I thought, oh no, it's fine, they're talking in another language, it's absolutely fine, they won't talk to me, they won't bother. So I just kept sitting, and then as they came past me, I realized it wasn't another language, they were from Liverpool. It was the accent,
which is kind of like another language.
So then I had to very quickly compose myself. So that was, and there were a couple of moments where I really missed, I missed life. Felt a bit lonely, a bit isolated. There were always moments where the fundraising at first didn't particularly take off quite so well, and there were moments where I thought, as much as I've raised awareness, I'm doing this, and it's maybe taking a little bit of time to settle into, but you get past those moments quite quickly.
But I still want to understand. I still want to understand in my mind's eye, like when you talk about dark, you had some dark times. Like, what is dark for Sarah? Is dark just crying and then getting it out and feeling a bit sad, or what is dark for you?
So, I mean, so brutally honest, I had separated from my husband maybe 7 years ago. Prior to that, hadn't had any major confidence issues. Again, late 20s, Mrs. Invincible, if you like. And since then, it gets better. It's gotten a lot better. But I did see a psychologist, or do see a psychologist every now and again. And I used to be quite ashamed of it, but not so much now. But dark for me is questioning myself. So my as a big sister, I often felt that, you know, separation looked, I was very much a big sister that, you know, was looked up to, and I kind of fell off a major pedestal, and a lot of people were very disappointed in me for making the decision that I made to end it. And what I then felt was that there are moments in my life where I've questioned my ability. Have I let people down along the way? And dark for me would be sitting down, and the separation was a crux point. But for me, there have been lots of points along the way where I made the decision to move abroad, and what that meant was moving away from my friends and family at a time when my family perhaps needed me, and made the decision to climb the mountains despite, you know, family and friends perhaps needing me, and having I remember going to talk to one of my friends and see him, and he'd said to me, you put a major downer on yourself. And I don't think it's intentional, Jen, but the reality is I will always question, have I done enough in every given situation? And what that looks like for me, I think, is in that moment, it's a case of what I don't want to do. There have been, my dad and I, we are very, 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 very close, but I would always like to make up for any things that he thinks have let him down in the past. And I think in those dark moments, it's not, you know, it's just something inside of me where I would say, have I done enough? And if I can sit there and think, no, you can do a little bit more, there's a very small dark moment that says, okay, but you do realize that to do that little bit more, Sarah, you've got to do X, Y, and Z. And then in my head, I've just got to have the realization that that's what I've got to do. So that dark moment is me questioning, have I done enough? Have I made up enough have I done enough for what I want to do, for what I've set out to do? Mm-hmm. And often the answer, Jen, if I'm totally honest, will be no, you haven't done enough, Sarah. You can do a bit more. You can do a bit more. But that's that 10 minutes of self-talk, which can be dark for me, because it's where it stems from. It stems from a time where I think, could I have done more? And so it's always a case of, could I do more? But intrinsically, I personally, if I'm honest, there's always been something that I'd set out to achieve or prove. I mean, at 21, I did so I got an email about doing the London Marathon, and I got the email on the 3rd of March, and I'd never run. I wasn't a runner at that point. I've done it loads of times since, but I wasn't a runner. And the event was on the 8th of April. And I just said, okay, yeah, fine. I'd never run a step in my life, Jen. I didn't really own a proper pair of trainers. But it was that intrinsic. I've always felt like I had to be able to prove something. So those dark moments are not so harrowing, but they are, from inside of me, can really give me, it goes one of two ways, and it always does. Complete doubt and lack of faith in myself, or you've got no choice, stand up and get on with it. So, and that's just a conversation you have, but I don't think I'm unique in that. And I think
what is the story with your dad? You've brought him up twice now, and also that feeling of doing enough. What is that dynamic there?
I have a wonderful family. I don't consider myself at all, like, we had a fantastic upbringing. Mum and dad very much together, have been for 40 years. I'm the eldest of four. I grew up, Jen, in a house where I'm the eldest, so big sister, and after me, two brothers. And I used to call them the horror stories, right? I still do, right? So there's me, and I grew up in adore my parents. So it was very much, my dad's an engineer. He works all the hours under the sun, and I really mean, he would work away. He would work 80-hour weeks. Got promoted. He was a really hard worker, very intelligent man. My mum's a nurse. So, 3 children, relatively close age to each other, working full-time night shifts, and managing that my dad worked away. So we had a family where it was, you just about survived, Jen, in that environment, with me in my dress, wanting to be a part of 2 boys who had swords and carving knives and would quite literally be running around the kitchen trying to kill each other. So I used to go to bed, Jen. So I used to go to bed and I would pull back the covers, and they had a plastic green snake, and they would put the green snake under my pillow. Right? So I'd go to bed. And I'd dream all night. And we moved. I loved them. Absolutely loved my brothers. But oh God, the conversations we used to have, my dad, the only thing my dad ever insisted on having was that we'd all sit round on a Sunday, because he worked away a lot, he missed us. So we'd have a Sunday dinner together, and he would sit down, and the boys would quite literally be throwing the gravy at each other out of the gravy boat, like fighting. I'd be sat going, oh, Mum, will you tell them? Will you two stop it? Just be nice to Mum and Dad. And my mum would be in the background going, this is why I never wanted any. This is your fault. To my dad.
Why did you mention earlier then with your dad, and if you'd done enough, or?
So as we got older, my sister came along as the accident, if you like, and we were so happy, and we are still a very happy family. As I've grown older, I think some of the choices that I have made, my parents are very traditional people, if you like, and I have a very close relationship with both of them. But I think if I'm totally honest, I went to a Catholic school. We're not particularly, I had a Polish granddad who was refugee, and we're not particularly religious, but traditional, if you like. And having an eldest daughter who is getting divorced is not where my dad would have wanted me placed in society, and so I think we are incredibly close. He's a wonderful man. He works incredibly hard for us. There is just a dynamic there, perhaps, where he would have wanted, perhaps he would never have put me in that category as such. And I feel very much like there was no choice in it ending, but I do feel like if there was one part of it that, it's very much been a success story, but if there was one part of it that was not good, it would be that when I look at my dad, I know, and it's not through any fault of his own, you cannot help how you feel. I know that he carries a small element of disappointment there.
Have you spoken to him about it? Have you asked him?
Yes, we talk about it. And the good thing there is that it's a conversation and it's happened. And the reality is, if I'm honest with you, Jen, I don't think I would if he wasn't completely a little bit disappointed in it, he wouldn't be the traditional man that he is. And that traditional man is the man that's brought us up to have fantastic morals and a hard-working mindset. So, I think actually that's who he is, and being who he is has instilled fantastic morals in us. So I get it. I think actually, if he wasn't, he wouldn't be who he is. So for that reason, I do feel there's an element where I don't know that I'll ever make it up to him, if you like. So in those dark moments, it's just that, can you do a bit more? Can you do a little bit more? And so, and you, like you say, you'll understand this, you know, it's a case of you're going to stand up. And I remember seeing one of your posts, and actually I owe you a humongous thank you, because your post that you made, and I'll tell you which one, was the day that I decided on the challenge. And it was when you said you've got to ring Netflix. And that was and on that day, and I thought, you know what, if Jen Rod and her sexy accent can do that, I'm gonna do this.
Climb bloody mountain.
So it was you, it's your fault.
That's cool. But that's what's so cool when you know, this is the thing with social media as well, right? Where and it's a skill, learning social media. It's a skill, but I think the true skill is learned through actually saying, you know, screw it. I am going to make myself vulnerable. And in that vulnerability comes, you know, showing parts of myself and sharing, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's cool to hear what you're saying, you know, because I remember that post about Netflix, and I remember thinking, oh my God, should I, shouldn't I? And, you know, everyone from the outside, you can always, especially on social media, you know, people can look like they're coping, and, you know, they look like they've got it all together, but we're all human, and we know that we all have our moments. But yeah, some people are more vulnerable. Some people have a more fighting spirit, or whatever the case may be. But
well, I hope you did, because honestly, that day was the inspiration for me that I needed. So, you know,
that's so cool to hear.
Yeah.
But I mean, now, so you said earlier on in the conversation you'd lost someone to suicide, and I mean, what was this and then of course you spoke about your vulnerability in Bahrain in the hospital when you had your cyst that burst, like. So what was the real deep, heartfelt, you know, that lock, the key to that little lock that was really the connection, that particular key to that lock that made you want to do this?
To do it. So I have, as I've said, you know, people in my life that have been affected. And now what I see is, I think for me, what it was I was watching a program about suicide, and it was about so it was well documented. It was a rugby player, and I watched it, and I know, I'm so sorry, there's a dog in the background. Sorry. You
are gonna give my editors the time of their life in this cafe. I'm hearing this clinking, and then people are talking, and I'm thinking, thank God I don't have to interview this conversation. One of you guys are interviewing this right now, whether it's Kira or Kamo, I don't know, one of you two. I love you to bits, and I can't wait for you to edit this and not me.
Guys, there's some pictures of some half-naked men up a mountain on their way to you as a thank you right now.
I'm not sure Kamo's going to want that. Maybe Kira. I don't know yet. Maybe he will.
I mean, I'll go for the ladies if you want. Come.
Carry on. Yeah.
So the premise of it, I think I was watching this program and they were talking about statistics, and I thought, do you know what? I've had a conversation with my brother. My brother is a human being to be seen, Jen. He really is. I've answered the door to my brother before in the pouring rain when he's been wearing a pair of my skinny jeans and nothing else, having had several pints on a Monday afternoon. My brother is the life and soul of every party and has a very dismal side to him, if you like, where we as a family know, but it's openly known that he does, but it's not discussed. And I was watching the program that mentally he struggles with his mental health, if you like. Now we make a joke of it as a family, but we're very aware of it, that for one, Andy has a cycle, if you like. A cycle like a woman does, but as my brother.
But is he gay? Is he gay when you
no,
say
no. He's just somebody that with his mental health. Now he has a girlfriend that he's had for nearly 10 years now, but with his
you spoke about him also wearing your skinny jeans.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. He's the life and soul of every party. So if somebody says put your sister's skinny jeans on, and Andy just says, all right, no worries. So and he won't mind me saying that because he knows. So, and it's he Chris is also very much they're very outgoing, but behind closed doors we are a normal family. That when I look at Andy, there are some days he has incredibly, he openly says not anymore really, but he did have help, and we know as a family that's happened, and we're very aware of it. But to just sit and talk about statistics as the program, it was a really informative program, but we can talk about it all day long. But I've lived beside it, amongst it, and it was having a conversation with my brother about that program, and I thought it's too many numbers and no real action being taken to represent those numbers, if you like. And I know, Jen, I know that I've talked, we talked earlier about behind the physio door versus in the actual main part of the changing room. Yes, there's less stigma. Yes, the statistics are known. It's not, that stigma is, yes, it's less publicly talked about. The reality of in those particular situations, particularly in an alpha male environment, they are the living of it. There is still stigma. There is still stigma. And I watched this program, had a conversation with my brother, and thought, I need to do this. I need to be representative. Had a conversation with one of the guys from football who'd said, my wife doesn't understand. And I thought, no. And one of his friends actually had taken his life that week. And I thought, no, I've lost a couple of people now, and we need to stand up and actually take some kind of action. And if I can raise this money, and then we can create some initiatives that might only, I don't get me wrong, Jen, I'd love to help just one person, but I'd like it to be more. And if we're going to have the opportunity, there's not many times in my life I'm going to have the opportunity to fundraise and the charity support being involved in what happens with that money. So that conversation with my brother, knowing, having had a chat with November that could happen, it all fell into place really.
Tell me, yeah?
Go on. No, go on.
No, tell me, why do you say they're not going to be many times in your life? I mean, you can always raise funds without climbing mountains. You can do other initiatives. It doesn't have to be so physically hardcore.
Oh no, yeah. This is true. I think it was on the basis I felt in that moment. It was almost serendipitous. I'd seen your post. I'd thought about the challenge. I'd spoken to my brother, watched the program, had been talking to several of my friends who were going back into the football environment after the lockdown and were feeling not so good about it. Things at home weren't great. I'd lost a couple of people, and at that point had a conversation with the charity where they'd said, you can be involved with the money that you raise. And that was the crux for me, I think. I don't know. I think what I had to do was take that opportunity then, because what that means is what I do for them in the future, I will then always be able to be involved in. But it felt like at that moment, if I didn't do it, I wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity to be quite so involved in the funds raised later on.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's it, right? That's what it is in life. You get, and a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people who are living truthful, really connected lives, they talk about that you get these moments in life, and when that moment is there, and you need to take it, and you also know when you didn't take those moments, right? But we do get these moments where things seem so bizarre, so crazy, it doesn't make sense, something's not adding up, but this is it's like this aura that's sort of just reflecting into your being, and it's doesn't make sense, doesn't add up, but it's there, and you just feel like you need to step into it.
Yeah, I couldn't. It's you've put it in such a like a wordsmith. You put it together so well, because it's exactly that. You are in that moment, and I know that, you know, you could sit there and you could deliberate over it for hours on end, but actually what you need to do is just say, are you capable of standing up and achieving it? Yes, you probably are. Right, everything's here. This doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to, you know, I've got my boots, I'm going to pack up the car and I'm just going to go for it. And it doesn't make sense to the outside world. It doesn't necessarily make sense in my own head. But what I know is that right now, this is where I've got to be doing it. And, you know, and tip my hat at it and say, you know, I'm doing it, and if it's going to raise money for a good cause, and it's going to tick some other boxes, and I've got the mental capacity to do it, go. So and that was it.
So tell me what and just to sum up now, because now you just finished in the last week, so you climbed it 100 times in how many days?
So it was 34. We kept the 100th to the 34th day.
Okay.
Which was nice because some people joined me. And it was nice because my mum was able to come. So 34 days. So we did the 100 climbs, 34 days. We're now fundraising wise £11,300 from the original target of 4,000.
Wow.
So that's been, you know, that's really ticked quite a lot of boxes.
And what are you going to do with that money?
So what I'm going to do, I've been in touch with Movember. We're going to try and push for 12 if we can. And if we can get 12,000 now, Movember have invited me to, I'm going to meet with them. We are going to look at what initiatives they already have in place, and then be able to discuss perhaps what could be happening with it, where it could go into research, and then anything that could be done in terms of initiatives that could be driven for men, that are not just a case of let's put the onus on the men to make the decisions to go to see a counsellor, because we know that psychologically men and women are very different in that way. Women will stand up, and not only will they talk to their friends and their family, they will openly seek help, whether that be just friends or family or professional. Men won't do that. So we need to create some drives whereby the onus is not on them. The push comes from other people or other external factors, and they then become involved in that.
Because that's actually what you talk about a lot, is the fact that the men say, my wife won't want to hear this, or it will put too much pressure on her, or so actually, that's I think where it's coming, right? It's about getting the access easy to the men without them having to go find it, and making it less not invasive, but making it less consequential. Do you know what I mean? So that there's not going to be a consequence if they do grab it. In the same way you just stepped into that aura, you know, the energy of what was presented to you to go and do this. This aura should be available to them easily, so that they can also just step into it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, if we can, as you say, bring them, come to us, you know, and it's the onus isn't on them. It's that we've, you know, somewhere along the line, not necessarily me, but the charity will create an initiative. I'd like to be involved somewhere along the line, but I think being part of a sporting background and alpha male background and surrounded by other men, I think it's really important that actually we give them the in, if you like, if that's what you'd call it. So actually it's okay. And I think as well, what I hope Jen to achieve from that as well is that, you know, what I've done a disservice to here is the wives, partners, sisters, mums of people that are struggling, because actually that's that's not an easy time for them either, you know, and it's not always, you know, so what I don't want to do is disservice to them actually, and maybe it creates a driver whereby the you know, an initiative that really supports men in what they're doing, and in turn hopefully that helps their support network if they have chosen to open up to one, because there will be people that have opened up to partners, wives, sisters, mums, and it's important that, you know, we try and for that I suppose geographic, if you like, or demographic, ensure that they have the tools that open need to know what to do as well. And by supporting men and having men involved in creating those initiatives, that then gives us a bit more insight into it. And, you know, and hopefully, go on.
No, so tell me why is there an issue? Why are so many men suffering from mental health? What is the problem?
Now, I'm not a mental health professional by any stretch. I can only speak from the experience that I have seen.
Exactly, and I know that. So I ask it purely from your inquisition into this, you know.
Yeah. So my driver is, well, what I see a lot of, particularly in a sporting environment, but also away from the football pitch. Sorry, I'm going to let that ambulance pass.
Is it someone climbing a mountain? Because aren't you still in the mountains?
Mountain rescue.
Why the hell is an ambulance in the mountains?
I know. It'll be mountain rescue. So sorry.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah. So from my perspective, it's there's three things that I look at. One is confidence. The other is, and I've actually got a voice note I asked for one of my friends to send me a voice note where he would be really open and honest about, you know, what it is and where it is and how it is. And he said in the voice note, you know, it's one of the things is confidence that I've observed. But the second thing is there's no opportunity. So you walk into an environment, or a boys' WhatsApp group is a perfect classic example, Jem. Okay, so somebody will say, "Is everyone okay?" And 5 people will say, "Yeah, great." One person will come in and say, "I'm not having a great day today," and for two, well, one major reason, because the men don't necessarily know how to respond to that, because they're not intuitively designed to do that. That message will get missed. So somebody will say, "Oh, okay, well, let's go out for a beer," but then when they go for the beer, the issue isn't discussed. They've just gotten them out of the house, or the conversation will just continue, and that message will get missed. So it's that lack of opportunity. So the confidence or lack of confidence against other men, lack of opportunity.
Well, men don't say, "Oh, shame, I'm so sorry, like what's happened?" Whereas if I'm just picturing, if it's a woman's WhatsApp group, the woman will all immediately, you know, chime in and be like, "Oh, shame, what's happened?" You know, typical woman. "Oh, shame, what's happened?" Right? Quote unquote. "Oh, shame, what's happened?
What's going on? Yeah.
What's happening?" You know, and then we want to talk about it. And okay, so I get that definitely if, you know, if that's happening, I mean, you know, you not often do men say like, you know, shame, like why, what's happening? You know, they don't respond to that. I do agree. But that's on a WhatsApp group. What about just like, why is it in the first instance that they're not in a good place? Okay, you say confidence.
Okay. So confidence, from what I've observed, it's confidence it's very easy. And it's really funny, Jen, actually, to watch a group. So if you were to watch a group of men together, there will always be one or two leaders that lead from the front. There will always be background people. Now, the people that tend to be in the background and the quieter ones, from my observations, the leaders tend to have problems, and so they are overcompensating by being quite out there, quite loud. They're overcompensating because what they don't want is anybody to question their confidence, because if they were to question them, then they'd have to open up a whole can of internal worms that they just do not want to deal with. So they overcompensate. And then the people in the background who are missed because of it's nobody's fault, but because you've got overcompensators who are loud and take up, fill a room with presence, if you like. You then got the backgrounds people. Now, in a male group, the people in the middle that are just semi getting on with things will be able to be confident in certain environments or are loud, are the ones that are always okay. But the overcompensators, from what I observe, have a problem, and the quieter ones in the background have a problem.
And where, out of the friends, because you've had at least 3 people that you know that you've lost to suicide. Yeah. So where would you have placed these 3?
I would have placed one of them as having an actual mental illness, so depression, manic depression, so mental illness as opposed to a mental health dark or difficult time. So we talk about mental illness in terms of manic depressive. He was very much completely out of almost externally out of society, if you like, had no friends as such, was being treated under a medical practitioner, and just could never get on top of. There was very little room in the system for him to have consistent help. That's not the system's fault, it's overstretched, but didn't necessarily have a consistent either psychologist, counsellor, would miss weeks where he wouldn't turn up and there was no follow-up there. And that's where that part about the men. With a woman, they tend to kind of, somebody will scoop them up in the background and say, you didn't go to your session. Nobody was saying that to him. If he decided he didn't want to go, the people around him, men around him, would say, okay, that's fine, no problem, mate, understand that it's not an easy week for you to go. And because of the crux of counselling or psychologists, going to see a psychologist still has some stigma attached. It was a conversation that never really happened unless it was with a female. And so what he would do is stop opening up to the females in his life.
But I mean, he wasn't born like that. So what you know what I mean? So what if you go back, what would have been the cause of the start of it, because
I see where you're coming. So I think in a male dominated environment, the real source of unhappiness is comparison. From what I observe, it's comparison. So as growing older, being unable to compete with the best sports person that's in the group, we as women, we compare ourselves constantly. Men do the same thing, but men do it quietly, very, very quietly. They will never openly say. What they will do is I don't know if the banter is the right word, but what they will say is things like, he's a good looking lad, but he's a I don't know, he's not very smart. But what they're really saying is, I don't feel I'm as good looking as he is. And they'll make it, they'll banter with it. Men compare so much. I see it on a daily basis, so much more than women do. They just do not talk about it. Talk about it in a sporting environment, military work environments. As a teacher, I see men all the time we've got a senior management team, all male, and there are teachers that would like to be up there, and they are quietly comparing themselves constantly. Am I good enough? Do I compare? And it's, you could talk about it if you were to talk about it in an alpha environment, in a rugby changing room, it's, I wasn't in the team this week. He's got a tanner on me, he's got a better looking girlfriend, if you like. He's got more confidence. He's quite happy to walk into a pub and be the life and soul of the party. And because the confident person hasn't necessarily said, actually, mate, I'm not that confident, I just like being, like showing it. What happens is comparison is a real source of unhappiness, but it's surfaced with banter or just not talked of at all.
And the stem of the comparison is I'm not good enough. That's
Yes.
where okay. So, and tell me, is this, having you now lived in several countries, does this change according to country in culture?
I'd say not. In fact, if anything, living in the Middle East, suicide rate's not particularly high in the Middle East, but not amongst men. Actually, it's the opposite, but for cultural reasons. But what I would say is there's still it's almost still a comparison. So the Middle East is, for all of its affluence and financial affluence, is still a relatively should we say, if I was to talk about the Emirati children that I teach, they look at the Western, well, they are considered Western now, but they look at the likes of England, they look at the likes of America. It's not frowned upon for people from, I don't know, the UK and America to perhaps get to 18 and go and live a little bit of an independent life and do a gap year, or go off to join the military, or go off to start their own business, or to travel across the other side of the world. And I'd say South Africa as well, to go off and be sporting. However, in the Middle East, the comparison there is not necessarily with each other, it's outside society, because they look outside of society and they think, actually, we don't get those opportunities because of our affluence. We're expected to do what we're told by the people who are financing it.
Okay.
It's just an incredibly different dynamic. Japan, again, so when I lived in Asia, I taught a couple of Japanese children. Japan, I believe, still has got one of the highest suicide rates in the world, because...
Really?
Yes, which you'd never ever expect, Jen. Now, they are, so the Japanese children that I taught, I spent some time with their parents, and incredibly humble people. Out of all the children in the school, and there were 1,300 in the school, the Japanese children were probably of the wealthiest, family wise. So financially, we know financially that no matter what is going on in your life, you could have all the money in the world, it's not going to change your internal emotional state. So those external factors are by the by, when internally you are not feeling your best. And I believe, based on research, the suicide rates in Japan are so high because of the financial, I believe, the financial pressure on the men to bring home and continue to bring home. But the crux of that, again, is comparison. So they are unbelievably hard workers, but what that means is that they spend, I think it's something like up to 20 hours a day at their desks in Japan, working. Wow. Really, exceptionally hard workers. And when they're not at their desks, they're networking. And it's that constant element of comparison, of this businessman has made more money than I did last month, so therefore I've got to be the one to go out and to kind of bring home more bacon, if you like, next month. And again, it's that it does appear to be a constant amongst men, just a very quiet, non-spoken level of comparison. So on, whether that be on a financial level, an emotional level, a confidence level, a looks level, a height level, men are under pressures, I think, that we don't realize. So
it's so funny because you're saying this and you talk about being in the change rooms, right? And and both you and I will know that right now South Africa and England are about to play again on Saturday. So we're going to see who's going to win the rugby. But so and what's interesting, I was watching a game, the first game where England won. And we were at a friend's house in their bar, and one of the guys said, they made a comment about the looks of one of the players. And it maybe because I'm also an interviewer and I analyze all the time without realizing, but it did sort of, it caught my attention that there was this conversation then that stirred around the looks of one of the rugby players, right? And then the other guy said, no, he's something about, he would struggle in a bar, trying to pick up a girl, or there was definitely this sort of subconscious and surfaced conversation going on there amongst those men about the looks of that player. And I mean, what do you think? Because this pressure's there, then it's there, right? These men, they have egos. It's testosterone. It's the egos, right? It's all, the world's driven by sex, they say, and men are so sexually driven. And here they were talking about, this, he's not going to find it very easy to pick up a chick. This is also very instinctive, and it's how like man and woman were born, and survival of the fittest, and why do you think the men who are faced with those same pressures don't go down the road of suicide? Like what do you think, in your observations, lived in different countries, dedicated the last period of your life to this mental health, suicide prevention, awareness? Why do you think some people then don't go down that rabbit hole of actually taking their life?
I wonder if, so just from my experience, there's a difference between, and going back to what you were saying just then, there's two, what you don't want to do, or what we never want to do, is remove that level of banter, because what it does, or that level of discussion, in that, he's never going to be able to pick up a bird, because the reality is that actually men love those discussions if they're in a good mental state. That's what they thrive upon. It is their fun. It is what their Saturday night is based upon. And there will be, men that are in a good place will tell you that when they walk into the pub, if they've got a wife at home that's nagging them, who thinks, they just want to spend time with their mates, a man will say there will be 3 points of discussion. Okay, football, women, or rugby, football, women, and beer, and that'll be it. The 3 points of discussion that will make their night probably one of the best they've, can make a fantastic night. And that'll be the end of it. Now, that's not to do with disservice. I'm sure there's a lot of philosophical discussions that go on as well. But they will form around those 3 main points. So people that don't take their life, I think what happens is somewhere along the line, they don't really want to. They don't want to end their life. And there's a difference between feeling grey when you get up and you're in a situation where you feel uncomfortable. So we could take it into the context of somebody is struggling with their confidence and they're feeling low, and they're in the changing room, and all the lads are, let's say, talking about last Saturday night, and this one particular lad is struggling with his confidence because he has not been able to he's not necessarily been a part of that Saturday night in the same way that the others were, shall we say. He's not necessarily achieved the same goals that the others have,
or comparatively there's some difference, you know what I mean?
Yes,
in the comparison,
in the comparison, exactly. And so they will struggle in that moment, but what they will do is seek confidence in other areas, and that grey moment will only occur when they're in that particular situation, and that's where perhaps their social anxiety might come from. Now, social anxiety can then lead further into other issues. If we were to talk about why do some take their life and some don't, I think what happens is what the person that does is the person that genuinely cannot see a way past tonight. So I'm going to go to bed tonight, and what I don't want to do is tomorrow. I don't want to do tomorrow. So it's not how can I do tomorrow, and it's that they've stopped thinking, they've stopped being able to see a tomorrow. So what they need to do in that moment is think, I physically cannot see past everything that's going on. And I think what we need to remember is that people of a good mental health, very, very easy to say, well, hang on a minute, we're just going to talk about it. We need to say that we could just talk about it. When somebody's feeling like that, first of all, they don't want to talk about it, but second of all, they don't know how to explain it. There are so many things going on in their heads that they don't know how to explain it. Hence why my physio room perhaps becomes a little bit of a really, really good behind closed doors, because they're not looking at me. It's not a face-to-face discussion. They've got their head down. They don't have to tell me everything, but it naturally will come out. And it's really, really, really important to note that somebody who is very, 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 very down, sometimes that asking them to talk, it's the wrong thing to do. The expectation on them to be able to explain how they're feeling is they don't know how they feel.
So then what do? If you recognize that's one of your, friends or siblings or uncles or whatever, if you recognize her, and now I'm speaking also, we're actually going to have to lead towards closing up shortly. But if you do recognize that someone you know or see seems to be in this depressive state and in a state, that noise, in a state of a downward spiral, what can we do as the observer who have these people in our lives,
I think so. There's another. Sorry about the noise. There's another. So when I was with the discussion with November, it fits in line with a really strong ethos that I have at the sports club. So essentially, what we have to do is take notice. So if you think somebody might have an issue or might be struggling, your intuition is probably right. So first thing to do is follow your nose. I think personally is ask the question and say, "Are you okay?" And if they say, "Yeah, I'm absolutely fine," right? Watch and learn, because if your intuition is telling you something's a little bit wrong, or you've noticed as a man, if you've noticed that, hang on a minute, he's not at the pub tonight, where is he? Is everything okay? Just ask, because they might not open up, but they'll know that you've asked and that you've noticed. And just try. We live such busy lives, Jen, that it's very, very easy. Nobody's got time to take on everybody, all of your friends that are struggling. Nobody's got that. That's fine. The expectation is not that. But to make somebody aware that you've noticed that something's a little bit wrong is a starting point. You can't fix it, but it's a starting point. They might not know that something's wrong, but if you make them aware that you've noticed it, they might go, "Oh, okay, actually, yes." 8 times out of 10, you're probably going to be right. And then after that, asking, listening. So listening in that you might ask a couple of questions, but really listen. Because if you're listening just because you want to check they're okay, you're not getting to the crux of the problem. So listen, just really listen to them, and then say, "Okay, all right, mate, is it, shall I give you a ring in a couple of days, or would you like me to ring you tomorrow, or would you like me to send you a message tomorrow?" Because that message might take you 2 seconds, but for them it could mean the whole world in those 2 seconds. And then the active encouragement of, "Now I've listened, do you think we could be doing something about it? What can I do to help?" Or not necessarily me. I like to listen. I listened to a story about a guy, and he ended up on a TV program. His wife had committed suicide. His wife, and she was the love of his life, and she'd committed suicide. And he ended up doing a TV show of a really, 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 really elite performance athlete level, because his friend had applied for it for him. Because his friend had recognized that there was something wrong, and his friend didn't have the tools. They talked about it. His friend didn't know what to say, didn't know how to ask. So the only thing he did was every day send this guy who was really, really low a message that just said, "Have you been for your run yet?" And the lad that was really, really low said, "No, I haven't." "Right, get your trainers on, go now." Because he didn't have the time to go and see him every day. He didn't have the time to ring him every day. but that one thing got him through.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
small things like that will make a huge difference to somebody in that moment. And the fact that you've noticed means that they know they are on your radar, and that might make them think twice in that moment.
Wow. Yeah.
Also, DMC. I have a DMC corner, deep and meaningful conversation. And if you say, "Oh, do you fancy a bit of DMC?" someone will go, "Oh, bit of DMC, bit of deep and meaningful." And if you make it like that, should we go deep? How deep are we going?
Yeah.
And if you can make it a little bit in that really difficult moment, a little bit less intense, that's effective. That's really effective.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's been so to just to chat to you and connect with you. I would have definitely have preferred it without the sound thing, because I feel like I've no, but I mean I just obviously I feel a connection with you because we've also connected before, just briefly, not that I know your story.
Yeah.
But, I am definitely going to play the sound back and make sure it's good enough, because your story has to go out, and I will be honest with you if I don't think it is.
Yeah, we can do it again.
That's fine. Because it's such an important cause, and you are this little spark of light, so your story has to go out there. But it's been so cool to chat to you. I'm really I was really looking forward to chatting to you today. And
me too. Me too. I know. If it's not good enough, tell me, because I'll fit it. We will make the time if we do it again.
But so tell me, just to be sure, if it's not good enough, are you able to get to a place because there was a lot of noise in the cafe?
Yeah.
Are you able to get somewhere else where it's just you in a room? Because I am concerned about the clinks and the clangs and then the talking and then the TV.
Yeah. If we need to do it for a third time lucky, that's fine. What I'll do, Jen, is I will absolutely make sure that I am somewhere. I had to go home for the funeral, so I had to come back, but I will make sure that I am somewhere that is for absolute certain just me in a dark room. And I'll, if you want,
you can turn the light on. Just don't let anyone else come in.
I'll have some pictures of a poster boy in the background if you want me to, and it's
exactly, that's what I'm talking about. Give me some juice here. Yeah, cool. But
if it's not good enough, we will. I will absolutely do a third time.
I'm going to get these guys to listen to it and tell me what they think. But I know myself now, for having edited over a year of so many episodes, that sometimes you actually just have to say we need to do it again, because
it's fine.
But it's been so I want to ask you more, but now I have to go because I've got to go pick up my little guy. But let's just I'm going to message you again. Let's not, I don't want to say, I hate saying goodbye, like when you have
me too.
Conversation. So I'm going to message you a bit later today, and we'll just connect quickly. But thanks so much for coming on the show, and
thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And I'll message you later.
Yeah, perfect. We'll speak later. And thank you to Kira for earlier. Bless her.
I'll tell her.
I'll send her a message. Thanks, Jen.
Pleasure, Sarah. Have a nice day. Okay.
Angie, see you soon. Bye. Bye.
Some more wine, 'cause life is for living. Let's see where this all might lead. I said life is for living. Let's see where this all might